TP-Link has challenged me to switch out all of my home networking equipment at home from this for all of this. The TP-Link team looked at my Ubiquiti setup and tried to meet or beat it where they could. And they did beat it in some areas, specifically with the Wi-Fi. They gave me a Wi-Fi 7 wall and a Wi-Fi 7 access point. I technically only have one Unifi access point now, so I really didn't need two because I am able to centrally locate my wireless access point to get great wireless coverage. However, I still needed a switch in the master bedroom closet for my wife's gaming PC so that it would be wired, and so this in-wall will still do a wired connection while also supplying Wi-Fi 7. So that's going to be a huge upgrade over my Flex Mini. Also, I originally planned on using the OC200, but honestly, it would fit in the rack kind of wonkily. Oh my gosh, seriously guys? So I'm gonna admit it and opt to use the cloud controller instead.
You're making a big mistake, cowboy.
Or maybe I might self-host the cloud controller. I really haven't truly decided at this time. But the total cost for all of this equipment comes out to about $1,632, which is actually cheaper than what I paid for all of my Ubiquiti stuff at $1,952 and some change. Almost $2,000. So that's quite the upgrade. Those of you that are comfortable with self-hosting would definitely like to know that if you remove the cost of the OC200 itself, you could save yourself another $80 or $79.99, which would bring the total to this same equipment down to $1,500 instead. If you are looking for Wi-Fi 7 and 2.5 gigabit networking, consider Omada, as it is not as expensive as you might think, and you can typically get discounts to save even more when you're purchasing through the Omada store. It's odd feeling both excited and reluctant at the same time to rip all of this equipment out. Let's get started. Rip it down. Now would be a great time to have rack studs, since I have to rip all of these things out anyway and replace them. Wish I had them, but I don't. And I will be leaving this one cable in here so my kid still has internet while all of this is being ripped out. We will be replacing the UDM Pro with an ER8411 router, and that is TP-Link's 10 gig capable router, so that will be a pretty sweet upgrade as well. Now I can get up to 8 gig internet at my home, but that is total overkill, so we won't be doing that. And I actually did downgrade my internet to 600 megabits per second, but if I ever need to, I can increase the speed to up to 8 gigabits as required. For those of you that keep up with the channel, you'll probably know that I still need the UDM Pro because it does run the entire camera system as it acts as an NVR. So we still need to use this and figure out where to put it in the rack below, but we'll have to do that at a later time, and probably not in this video either. All right, let's keep removing stuff. Next we'll be replacing this 24 port switch with SG2428P switch. That's also 24 ports, does PoE as well, and it is gigabit as well, so it's basically a one-to-one replacement of this. Lastly, we're replacing this 10 gig switch from Ubiquiti that I've had for years. This is one of the oldest switches I have in my home lab or my home, and this thing has been an absolute beast over the years. But now we have a new switch from TP-Link that is the S63026HPP, and that will be the replacement for this. I don't know how well you guys can see this, but when we started, the temperature of the closet was 84 degrees Fahrenheit, and now it's 79. So just ripping out that equipment has already dropped the temperature of the closet already. That's pretty insane. To be completely transparent with you guys, TP-Link obviously sent me all of this equipment for free. I didn't pay any money out of my own pocket for any of this. And I'm also obligated to tell you guys about the pricing differences between the two and how they compare. Now, it's not completely apples to apples, because if you look at the UDM Pro, for instance, it is a multifunctional device. On top of that, I was also supposed to use this 2.5 gigabit switch, but it just simply won't fit in my networking rack. And that would have been included in the original price, but since they did send me a 10 gig switch, I didn't really see the point of using the 2.5 gigabit switch for their Wi-Fi 7 access point that they sent me. So that could also be something to consider if you're looking for a 2.5 gigabit solution instead of something that's 10 gig. You could actually save some additional money by downgrading to a 2.5 gigabit switch instead of using the 10 gig switch I have if you are looking to get to Wi-Fi 7. So also keep that in mind. With that being said, I'm still going to give you guys my honest opinion about how this all goes. However, that's more than likely going to be in a follow-up video, as I still have to set up my entire home network and get everything basically how I think it should be set up and or like it. Now, I am not a networking expert, so there could be things that are very important to you at home that aren't so important to me. Now, just to think of an example, and this may not be a good example, I remember in the past there was some talk about stateful access control lists. I don't know if TP-Link ever rectified that or if that's still an issue today. That's something I have to self-discover because it's been some time since I've actually used TP-Link's equipment on my own. So keep that stuff in mind. If I forget to mention something, it may just be because I either don't know about it or don't need it for my home setup. All right. With that important part out of the way, let's get back to actually trying to set all of this up. There's still one thing I gotta do before we begin racking this equipment, and because I'm not gonna be using the OC200 and we'll be using the cloud controller, we can actually pre-provision all of this equipment by scanning these UPC codes. Now, I'm not actually obligated to tell you about this part, but I do find that this is pretty cool. Forgot to take the cover off there. So if I just scan each of these codes, I can go ahead and add this to my cloud controller and they will be ready to go for me when I'm ready to actually configure them and get them plugged in, or plug them in and then configure them. Okay, for some reason that one didn't add, so we'll have to look into that. Oh, interesting. It says the gateway model is different than the gateway model configured in the WAN settings. Okay, I'll have to look into that, but normally it should scan right in. Let's see if we can add this. So, this is our Wi-Fi 7 device. All right, so we'll go ahead and add this one in as well, and then we can add finally our last Wi-Fi access point. So I did get everything added except for the ER8411. There was some error that I got, something about some pre-existing thing. So I'll have to look into that. That's probably because I've used this app in the past to configure other routers. At this time, nothing is plugged in. So before we do anything, I do want to try and pre-configure some of this already. We are going to change the organization name to SPX Labs. This really should say home, but it's fine. And let's go ahead and change the time zone to my time zone. I will hit save. And now we'll go manage the organization itself. And there's a couple things I want to do. Like first, I'd like to, I guess we'll start with internet. Okay, so let's do WAN overrides. Looks like it already selected the right gateway model. Yes, I want to use SFP plus WAN 1. We could use multiple LAN ports if we really wanted to. I'll just go ahead. No, we'll save this one for the LAN and this one as well. Let's actually turn this one on WAN LAN 4 too, so that way we can use this as a WAN port just in case our SFP doesn't work for some reason. And we have a backup. Okay, that's saved. So let's go configure our LAN. And it looks like it pre-created this for us. Let's see if we can actually delete this. It doesn't look like we can. Okay, let's try and modify it at least. I'd like to change it off the default to something else. And hitting tab was not what you were supposed to do. Oh, cool. Okay, just type. Just type like you normally would. We're going to change it to 10.10.10. You can set this to whatever you want. I'm sorry, .1. You can set this to whatever you want. I'm just choosing to do this just to be different, to avoid any conflicts. Change my DHCP range to start at 10, so it'll start handing out addresses from there. Actually, let's change it to 11. Yeah, we'll change it to 11, so that way it'll start handing out at 11, and then we'll have ports or IPs 1 through 10 reserved for anything that we want to set manually. We will set a DNS of 1.1.1 and 1.1.2.2. I don't know if this is a real DNS address, but I'm going to use that anyway. I think that's everything. Let's hit save and see what happens. Got it. Okay, cool. That updated. So that's going to be our new subnet and our default VLAN. We could go ahead and start pre-creating all our other LANs here. One thing I don't know if you noticed, I did say that all of these LAN ports are going to belong, are going to belong to this default subnet. But we're just trying to get things set up. I'm not going to get too crazy with the advanced. All right, so let's go over to wireless LAN. We don't have any wireless network set up, so let's create one. Let's call it, we're going to call it labs for now. We're going to select EAP. I think if we had a wireless gateway, we would select this. I'm not actually sure. We're also going to enable 6 gigahertz so we can use that Wi-Fi 7 and Wi-Fi 6E, I believe, uses 6 gigahertz as well. We're going to leave guest network disabled for now. Okay, that's our only option. Set a password. Okay, we will broadcast it. Prohibit Wi-Fi sharing. Interesting. Okay, we're going to leave that as default. Or we're going to leave most of the stuff as default. Looks like that's our only option. I bet we can change these after we get things plugged in. IMLO. This is important, but I can't remember what this does. IMLO configurations will not take effect until the wireless devices. I feel like I need to enable this. Oh, yeah. I do want to enable this. So IMLO allows us to have one SSID and for each of these bands. So all of these will show up as one, and we don't have to do anything crazy. Okay. Group key update period. Not sure what that is. And we're going to leave all this other stuff as default. Hit apply. All right. So we have our IMLO band. This is super important. With our network basically configured or configured enough, we can go ahead and get this stuff rack mounted. And we're pretty close to being done already. Let's go ahead and start getting everything wired back in. So we're going to start with the ER8411, and I am going to put this at the top just like the old setup. And just like before, I'm also going to put our 24-port PoE switch in the middle. This just gives it a cleaner look overall. I think we can all agree on that. Having rack studs right now would be dope. Really should upgrade. The last piece of the puzzle to go in here is our 10 gig switch. This thing is going to be absolutely perfect, and we need a 10 gig switch because I run multiple servers that are all 10 gig capable. So this is actually probably the most important component of this entire network. I'm also going to be using these SFP Plus modules. Don't know if that's in focus or not. So this is important because we'll be using up to 10 gig networking from our ISPs. Yes, ISPs, because I do have Google and AT&T. So we'll be taking our AT&T connection and plugging it into that SFP Plus module. And then we'll be running our DAC from the second port here that we should have configured as a LAN port. I want to route this around and through the side. It's not going to be the cleanest setup ever, but I'm working with what I got here. So let's just pull that through, wrap this under. It's not too bad. I'm going to plug this into the bottom SFP Plus port. And the reason why I want to do this is that way, so if I need 10 gig or really fast internet, all of my servers will be connected to the 10 gig switch. And basically the entire home is run on 1 gigabit networking. So it doesn't matter if this gets 10 gig speeds or up to 10 gig speeds to the internet. Now I'm out of SFP Plus modules, so I'm going to try to use a 10 gig one instead of a TP-Link one and see if this works. And we'll just stick it in the side here. Hopefully this works. I have no idea. If not, well, we're going to have to figure out a solution, which I think I have some extra SFP Plus modules laying around, so we should be okay. So we got our DACs connected, and we can basically start plugging everything in. And as per usual, the blue cables mean power over Ethernet. These are the important 10 gig ports here. Oh wait. So we'll plug this into the first port because this is an important one. This goes to my Mac Mini, this top one. The middle is actually blank. I need to update. All of these need to be updated because not all of them are actually populated. This one is Office Middle, so this actually goes to the AT&T network. These two are the AT&T network, so we're just going to ignore that. And then we're going to plug all of our servers in like so. Let's see. Let's move this one back over. Alright, that should be good. I think that's all of the servers. C5 shouldn't be plugged in right now, but that's 1 gig anyway. Office bottom needs to go to modem. Oh, sorry, I said office bottom. Needs to go to modem. There we go. And then office middle can be whatever we want. So typically I think I make this one go down. So if I want to go down to the network rack below, I'll have to do that. Cool. And we still have one free port. All right, one of the last things to do is take down the access point. All right, which has been up here for quite some time. Wow, there's a lot of dead bugs underneath this thing. We will be specifically replacing the U6LR with a
EAP 772.
This is, of course, Wi-Fi 7 and all of the above capable. Let's see if I can get this plugged in. Here we go. And I think, like Ubiquiti, I just got a twist. All right, not half bad. I am definitely liking that. It's looking really good up there. And it's much smaller than I thought it would be too, which is great. All that's left to do now is just reach back up in the network closet and get everything powered on. And we should be pretty much good to go from here. So just a little bit more work to do and we're good. Okay, everything's plugged in and powered on, so we just gotta basically wait for things to get connected to the internet and grab down those pre-configurations we made. Let's go ahead and check to see if the Wi-Fi has come on. No, it doesn't look like the Wi-Fi is on just yet. It looks like it's showing up as 2.4, TP-Link 2.4 and TP-Link 5 gigahertz. I don't see anything about 6 gigahertz, presumably because my iPhone 13 is not Wi-Fi 6 capable. But we'll just give it a minute and then check on it in a couple of minutes, few minutes, see if all that pre-configuration worked or not. Okay, yeah, it just now popped up as labs and the other TP-Link stuff went away, so it does look like provisioning is working. Wow, that actually scared me for a moment. I thought I was gonna have to do something. All right, let's try and connect to it. So let's see if we can connect to labs. I don't remember the password. Uh-oh, unable to join the network. Maybe we need to give it more time. All right, we're gonna give it more time while we wait. It looks like it's mostly working and the boot up process was quite lengthy, so let's just give it more time. For some reason, I can't join the Wi-Fi network with my iPhone 13. However, on this really old iPad, I don't even know what generation this is, it's connected and the internet is working. So maybe I need to reboot. Yeah, so I've got internet that's working. So maybe I need to reboot my iPhone. Like I don't know why it's not working on iPhone. Is there something about this old iPad? I don't even know what generation this is. Is there something about this old iPad that works better than the iPhone 13 mini? After having trouble connecting to the Wi-Fi and logging into the cloud controller, I was supposed to show you some of the problems I found and the issues, and also how I troubleshot my way out of them to eventually solve and fix them all. However, because I forgot to record a lot of the parts, especially the most important ones, I'll just have to recap and describe to you the process while also showing you some of the parts that I did manage to record. When I first logged into the Omada cloud controller, everything seemed to be stuck at pre-configured and was showing the wrong subnet. It was showing an IP address of 192.168.0 and whatever IP address it got assigned by DHCP. Not sure what to do, I kicked out all the devices from the cloud and manually re-imported them. From there, the ER8411 was the first to import correctly and showed the correct subnet, but all of the devices had firmware that needed to be updated. I started with updating the EAP 772 as well as the 10 gigabit switch, and once those were updated, they seemed to import correctly and also show the correct subnet. After that, I went ahead and updated the ER8411 a couple of times because it too had some very old firmware. Eventually, everything was updated and connected, but the 24-port switch still didn't appear online. After trying a few different DACs and SFP modules, I finally relented and plugged it in via Ethernet between the 24-port switch and the ER8411. Once the uplink was established, the switch showed up and grabbed the correct subnet address, and I quickly updated it and moved back on to Wi-Fi. It's like after updating the EAP 772, it does seem to work now as I am connected to Wi-Fi, so that's good there. I knew something was up with that because the iPad totally connected and that's older than this device, so there, in my mind, there was no reason this shouldn't have worked. But whatever the case, that's up and running, so now we need to install the in-wall, and hopefully this in-wall installation goes a lot more smoothly than everything else so far. While this access point is Wi-Fi 7 and capable of 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, we're actually not going to use that in this room because we just don't need it. So we are only going to use a 1 gigabit connection for this. If it ends up being an issue in the future, we can just really quite simply upgrade the switch to a 2.5 gigabit capable switch, or whatever as needed. It doesn't really matter. But for now, we just need to get this access point removed, and then we can replace this non-Wi-Fi 7 device with our new one. With the wall plate removed, we do have a female connector in here, but that's okay. We'll just stuff all the cables inside, and it will be fine. And it looks okay, so we'll just, yep, powered right up, so that's good. And we're going to be using the included screws that TP-Link gives to us because these are very long, and as you can tell, this device is quite thick. So we're going to be using those for our wall box, and they fit right in. What I also like about this is we can turn the LED off. Well, I guess after it provisions, we could turn it off, but we could turn the LED off if that bothers you or anyone. That's a really nice touch. All right, there we go. Installed. And now the LED actually turns off. No more wall plate. On, off. And of course, we just need to replace the cover and plug everything in. So this goes to the PC. And I'm just gonna plug this into the 2.5 gigabit port because why not? I think this cable's gonna reach. Yep, it's in. It barely reaches. That's awesome. All right, let's just get this wormed away. Get this. All right, that's good. That's good enough. Let's get out of here. We're done. Oh my gosh, really? Please. Okay, guys, in the spirit of I paid for 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, I'm going to get 2.5 gigabit Ethernet or Wi-Fi 7. We will hook up that access point with 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. Let's go do that. To make this happen, we really just need to put this TP-Link SFP module in and just reroute some of these cables, or this mess of cables, so we can make this happen. It doesn't really matter what we move around. Well, I guess it kind of matters. Let's see if we can get one of these shorter cables to reach. Heck yeah, that makes it. And then, so we need to go from here to master bedroom, which is all the way up here. All right. There we go. We're plugged into the primary bedroom now. Yeah, and the light came up immediately, so that's going to be on 2.5 gigabit now. Awesome.
All right, so the EAP 725 showed up about 5 minutes ago after I was kind of cleaning up after myself, and there's an update available. I'm going to go ahead and update this just to potentially remove any added support for MLO. See, this is important. We don't need this, but I want this. So that's good. So let's go ahead and hit upgrade here, confirm, and I'm glad that it actually popped right up and we didn't have to do any extracurricular activities to make this one work.
So it turns out if you want to have IDS enabled, you can't use Omada Cloud Essentials, which I either forgot or did not realize. You must have either the paid Omada Cloud solution or have an Omada software-defined networking controller. So thankfully they did send one of these over, so we will actually be using it in this build after all. I'm gonna go get this installed. At the very least, thank goodness that this OC200 is PoE capable, so we don't have to have any extra power cables at all. We can just plug it in to one of the PoE ports and we'll be good to go. Now, unfortunately, the ER8411 doesn't do any PoE at all, so we will have to kind of make this even uglier than it already is and wrap some of these cables around to kind of hide away the OC200 somewhere, since it's technically not rack mountable. We could put it up here, but I think I'm just gonna hide it somewhere in the back, maybe on top of one of these other units, and just be done with it. All right, with this thing nicely hidden away out of everyone's view, it looks like it's got power that's coming online, so we just need to configure it, and I think we could finally be done. The OC200 showed up, and I promptly updated it with the latest firmware. Then I went back to the cloud controller where I attempted to export the organization, configuration, and devices. Trying to restore the Essentials backup failed because the version and compatibility differences between the cloud and the controller, which forced me to recreate the pre-configuration I did at the very beginning of this video. Once that was done, I was sort of able to migrate the devices from the cloud to the OC200, but they showed up as managed by others. Trying to adopt the devices didn't go as planned because I had forgotten the password, but after looking it up, I was able to successfully import and provision all of the hardware, which configured perfectly this time around. Next, I could go through the settings, which had way more options available, and could finally enable intrusion detection and prevention. I also went ahead and enabled Geo Enforcer and played around with the security levels before actually enabling the feature. With everything mostly configured, we're finally ready to check out the speed test over Wi-Fi. There we go, finally! Get up there! Almost 2 gigabit. Oh! That's pretty sick. I mean, we went over 2 gigabit there very briefly and averaged out pretty well. Now that's some sick Wi-Fi. Only for completeness, we're going to test from the Mac Mini to the server just like we did with the phone to the server. And yeah, as you would expect, we're basically hitting 10 gigabit per second here, and we're doing a pretty good job. Yes, I know Open Speed Test isn't the best tool for kind of gauging the network. There's tools like iPerf3, or quite simply just transferring a large data file from the Mac Mini to the server via Ethernet. But in this case, it's still all the same nonetheless to me. So that test ended up being pretty good. Of course, I think some pretty good results overall, and so far I'm pretty happy with the way things are working. And from here, the 90-day challenge begins, and I suppose we'll check back in about 3 months to see how it all went. So with all that being said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.